Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at a company known as Vipr Tech. They're again a quality gaming PCs made affordable company. Mostly all of the companies I've been looking at have some sort of quote like this on their main page. It's just funny to see it kind of everywhere. But yeah, these guys are selling gaming PCs and they're actually a little bit different than a lot of the other guys that we are taking a look at. But before we get into that, please make sure to leave a like on the video if you end up liking it. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content, and join the channel Discord if you guys have any tech questions or just want to talk tech to any other tech enthusiast. Alright, so let's get into the video. So one thing I would like to mention before this video is that I'm not endorsing this company. This is just a straight up review. This is just my look at their specs and nothing else. I have not seen build quality, I've not seen their customer support, nor have I seen how the system's going to handle and shipping, because again, every company kind of takes different approaches to all those different situations. So guys, if you ever have bought one of these, if you're just someone who kind of stumbled on here after your initial purchase of one of these, please just go down and talk about your experience. Please be detailed as possible to help out other people who are potentially looking to buy, so you can either deter them away for if it's a bad product, or you can either give them some encouragement to go and buy it to see if it's actually, you know, some decent value. So for face value, none of these computers really seem terrible. They're all around the really low budget range. They don't go past, I think, $700. Yeah, $700 is their highest end one, and they have 12 total. Yeah, that's 12. And they've got some pretty old components in some of their cheaper ones. So their cheapest one that they're selling right now is their starter Intel, and that goes for $300 and basically $30. So $330 for a Intel i5 650 and a Radeon HD 7470. This processor was released in Q1 of 2010. It was on the 32nm lithography, and you know, these are the clocks. Nothing kind of crazy here. Everything's just kind of basic. It's not a great processor nowadays. It's still only got 2 cores, 4 threads, which again, it's not great. Pentiums that come out right now, they're $50 new, will beat this thing like crazy. But again, it's a processor for a really cheap system. So I took a couple looks at a couple of benchmarks for the HD 7470. It's not the best graphics card, like, at all. An Xbox probably will play better than it, because what I saw was a Fortnite benchmark with it that's running at 720p and all low settings, and it's barely able to scratch 30 FPS. So, you know, it can play the game, just not well. And it's not like, the only reason why I wouldn't take any of these systems that are on these really old processors is these FX 4100s and Intel i5 650s, or any of these ancient ones, is that there's not really any upgradability. You know, if you're buying something this cheap, you're probably going to be wanting to look for something to get later in the future. Talk about with some performance. I mean, with these guys, you probably only have one PCIe slot, and that's probably like first gen. So when you're using anything somewhat modern, you're going to have a data bottleneck between the PCIe interface and the CPU. It's just not a good time upgrading in general. So I probably wouldn't buy any of these low-end ones, but that's not what we're looking at today. You know, we're not going to be looking at all these other ones over here. I mean, actually, some of these aren't terrible. You've got an Intel i5 2400 and a GTX 660. Again, pretty low-end card, but it's a little bit better than this. I mean, you're probably going to be able to play at 1080p 30 FPS with a GTX 660 2GB card. Again, it's a dated card, but at least you'll be able to play 30 FPS on Fortnite, which is not a very hard game to run. It's basically going to be esports games between all of these computers down to here. But when you start getting to the Pro Series, those are when you're actually going to be able to play modern titles. So for the Pro Intel, for $530, you're getting an i7 2600K along with an NVIDIA GTX 1060 3GB card. So this is pretty standard that we've seen in this kind of price range, is some sort of Intel i-series processor with always an NVIDIA GTX 1060 3GB card. So the graphics card, you've got an NVIDIA GTX 1060. It's going to be able to play all your games that you want to play, and the CPU really should not bottleneck it. 8 gigs of DDR3, enough to play your games as long as you're not doing anything else with it. And then you got a 1 terabyte hard drive. Now for $530, this is actually cheaper than what a lot of other sites are offering. You're not really getting this good of a PC for that amount, so I'd probably go with it if it's like right at your price range. But if I were you, I'd save up a little bit more money and try to check out some of these other computers. So again, I wouldn't go with any of their AMD series FX processors. I mean, the Ryzen ones are fine, but don't get any of the ones that say FX on it, just because AMD FX series processors were never good. They just weren't really able to compete with what Intel had at the time. AMD was just so far behind in their technology, and Intel was just so good at making chips. It didn't really make any sense for you to have an AMD FX series processor, and they just haven't really aged well at this point. You can still get them for cheap. That's because they were sold for cheap. But yeah, still an i7-2600K. It's a 4-core 8-thread processor, but it's going to destroy an FX 8350, which is not really an 8-core processor. There was a huge legal dispute about this, but yeah, it's not really an 8-core processor. It doesn't perform as good as the Intel i7-2600K. Now, their $600 system, which is basically the sweet spot that every company tries to hit. This is Lighttech's Hyper PC, and then this is, I think, Tech's Rogue. So this is the sweet spot. This is where everybody's selling it. This is where all the value's coming in, and I definitely think that they do a good job at fulfilling that need. So in terms of processor, they have the best one out of all of them. So for light gaming PCs, they have an i5-3470. Now it is a generation behind that i5 that's in the Lighttech PC, but it's an i7-2600K, and from that generation jump, there wasn't really that huge of a performance uplift from the 2nd to 3rd gen i series. So this one's still going to be the better performer out of both of them. And then for Vipr Tech, I think they had a 2600 non-K. Now, it's not like you're going to be able to overclock any of these computers. I doubt that they have a Z series motherboard. For those of you who don't know, in order to overclock an Intel CPU, you need to have a Z series motherboard, which is their highest end motherboard platform. They lock that away behind basically a paywall in order for you to get some extra performance out of your CPU. But even then, you do have higher base clocks than on the 2600K, rather than just the plain old 2600, just because, it's a better bin piece of silicon. So yeah, now the RAM, you're on par with Vipr Tech. They've got the same amount. I think they might have it a little bit faster clock speeds. I think it might be around the same. It shouldn't matter too much. And then with Lighttech, they have 8 gigs, so it's half of that. And these guys do not have any SSDs on any of their computers, which really does suck because both Lighttech and Vipr Tech do have SSDs for their boot drives. These guys do not. It's just a straight up 2 terabyte hard drive, which is more than both of those companies have combined in their their systems. So there's that. But if you're looking for fast boot up times and stuff like that, you'd probably want to get an SSD for your system. Now this company is definitely small. You can tell by just kind of how messed up their page is. I guess they didn't really have a whole lot of resources to kind of put it together. This whole entire area right here, I assume, is not supposed to be blank, and this whole entire area right here is not supposed to be cut off. Believe me, I've tried messing with screen balance and stuff like that. It's just how the page is set up. So you might just need to shift everything over like a little bit, and you might be able to read everything that's on the side. So it looks like that they just kind of copied and pasted from both of the Ultimate variants, and they say it has liquid cooling, which again I definitely don't think it does. It says features RGB liquid cooling. I guess that's what that's cut off for. And that's what it shows in the pictures. It shows it's got an AIO on there, but it definitely doesn't. It definitely does not have liquid cooling, because if you go to PC specs, if you look at cooling, it says Intel OEM copper cooler. That's not a copper cooler. That's a AIO right there. So it's probably the copper cooler. They probably just kind of took the pictures from both of them and just threw them together. I would rather have the picture of the copper cooler, because then I know at least what I'd be getting. But yeah, so their site, like most small computer company sites, does need some work. A little bit more thought needs to go into it. Make sure they fix all the little typos, make sure the screen bounds are correct. As well, their higher end computers are actually really good. compared to a lot of other computers. Actually, Vipr Tech doesn't even kind of match these guys. These two computers are kind of in the league of their own. So they've got a Ryzen 5 1600. It's not the AF model. I don't think it is, at least. And it's a pretty dang good deal for a Ryzen 5 1600, which is a amazing CPU. It's one of my go-tos that I've been using for a long time. An RX 580, which basically outperforms the 1060 in most games. I think the 1060 might come, you know, close to it, but you're basically just getting a straight up upgrade. As well, you're having, you know, a lower amount of RAM, you know, lower amount of storage, but, you know, your processing power is getting a huge bump compared to these two computers for roughly the same price as that. Wow, that's the same price, and then roughly for $30 more than that. So if I were getting anything, I'd probably get this one. But wait, there's more. They have a much better one where you've got 16 gigs of RAM and a 2 terabyte hard drive. I think that's definitely worth it. For an extra $70, you get twice the amount of RAM and twice the storage capacity. I think it's worth it. So like most companies that I've been talking about, these guys have good value, not on their bottom ones. I would not get one of their bottom ones. I kind of stay in this range, like 1, 2, 3. Those 3 ones might be, oh, actually wait, that one, that one, that one, that one are the ones that I would go to from the site. All other ones can eat it. They are not good configurations because their specs are just you know, me personally, I wouldn't get it. But yeah, so if you guys have ever had any of these purchases from this site, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today today we're taking a look at a company known as Vipr Tech.